Something to think about here. Our minds often reveal what is actually important to us through our speech. When you listen to a leader's speech, they present their business values in the order of their importance. Jody Holland in today to talk more about this. Very interesting when you're talking about a leader and how, how they're speaking to in a public setting, but also just in general. And
think about this for just a minute. How many times have you heard a leader say, look, my primary goal is business growth and success, and I realize we have to be nice to our people. And so the business growth and success comes first, and then the people come second. Most leaders will talk about the things that they're being driven towards, so stockholder value, things like that. And I have no problem with making money. I think it's a great idea. I think everybody should be as successful as they can be without giving up the right values in the right order. So you think about the syntax or the order that people talk about things. What you're doing is you're actually revealing at a subconscious level what is driving you towards your purpose or your success. That syntax itself, which just means the order of the words, think about this. The dog bit Johnny versus Johnny bit the dog.
Sure.
All the same words, very, very different meaning when you present them that way. Leaders have to be careful about the way that they talk and the way that they present themselves, because even at a subconscious level, they're being evaluated by their followers and by the general public. So when a leader talks about the wrong things first, it sets up in the mind of the follower, oh, that's what's important to them. I'm not what's important to them. So you want to be very, very careful about the way that you present things, and you want to listen to yourself when you're not focusing on that and go, okay, what is driving me? What is important? If it's, the profitability and the structure and all of those things, and then eventually down the line you come back around to people, what you realize is a lot of those things that you're striving for, those are the natural byproduct of a great culture. So when your people come first, they're in that right order, what you'll find is the culture creates success. The culture itself, or the personality of the organization, will determine whether or not you're going to be profitable.
Okay. I think, though, that the leader must be authentic in that, too, right?
Totally agree.
Have to buy into that philosophy, because if they don't, we see through it, right?
Yes.
And then I also think, Jody, that person who's speaking and who's listening, the person who's listening, starts to just not listen if it's not what they want to hear, right?
Over.
If that first part isn't what they want to hear.
So what you said, I think, is very important. You do have to be authentic in the way that you talk about this. But if you just listen to yourself, you map out, I'm going to speak about these things, you start to realize, oh, that's actually the order of importance to me. Then you can start evaluating, are my values in the right order? Am I doing the things that matter the most? And if you're not, if things are out of order, step back from that and figure out a pathway back to being authentically driven to take care of your people and to create a profit.
Does it matter, too, what you're emphasizing in your speeches or what you're saying to your audience?
Well, it will always matter what you're saying and how you say it, but I think when you look at that emphasis side of it, you'll notice that certain words will stand out, or they'll use the same word over and over again in order to drive home their point. So the order of it and the intensity of the way that they present it will always matter. So yes.
Very interesting.
Syntax and emphasis, or order and emphasis.
Two things to think about, for sure, when you're speaking in a public setting and also just in a really kind of casual setting.
Casual setting, sitting around talking to people, even just the way that you talk to yourself about your business. All of that matters.
Very good.
So more information, go to jodyholland.com or psycheofsuccess.com, or if you want quick tips from me, if you'll text Jody to 66866, we'll get you taken care of.
You're the man.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jody. We'll be right back after this, everybody.